Wonderful.
So again, my name is Roxanne Farkas with UC San Diego Extension Extended Studies. We're happy again to have Brittnye Dione S, University Relations Analyst, today from Visa. So excited to collaborate and connect once again. She'll be talking today about some resume techniques and strategies. She'll give you some information about her company and talk about some opportunities that they have at Visa right now. So go ahead, Brittnye, and we'll go ahead and have you introduce yourself and we'll start.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for having me. It is always a pleasure. Roxanne, she is definitely my go-to girl at UCSD, and I just absolutely love UCSD as a campus. So thank you everyone for having me. And as Roxanne mentioned, I am going to be talking a little bit about resume writing, and we'll get into some of those details there. But let's kick it off. We have a cute little video with the with our media. But just a quick introduction. I'm Brittany. I am a Texas native. I do have my master's in higher ed. I actually have a background in student services, student administration. So I have worked at colleges, but then I've also made that transition to corporate successfully. I always throw in a plug, you know.
I know, plug it in.
Oh, wait. Can you all hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. So I've been with Visa for 2 years. I have worked previously at Google, GE, Cumulus Media. I've spent about 6 to 7 years now in university relations, so tying that in with my student affairs. I do think that I was an expert baker in my former life because I just love to bake. And I have a birthday coming up, and my gift to myself is I'm going to Egypt for a week and a half, which I'm extremely excited about that. So if any of you have been to Egypt, I would love any recommendations. So let's go ahead and kick started. So this is our agenda. My goal for today is really to walk you through some important tips on building your resume. I will have some dialogue about Visa and just what we're looking for, but really for today, I wanted to just share with you just insights that I've learned. Now, I do have a disclaimer, and hopefully this isn't a disappointment to anyone, but this session is going to be more non-traditional. And it's probably not what you're going to expect or maybe attended previously. So typically when we talk about resumes, right, you know, most of the time you're going to be walk through formatting, you know, chronological versus functional templates, and really talking about, you know, targeted keywords, and which all those things are fantastic. That is information that is very important. I do feel though, especially in this major competitive market, right? Like we are literally seeing the market just explode. I feel like for the sake of time, there were some topics that I really just wanted us to dive a little bit deeper. I really want to explore, you know, the reason behind the resume and what I've learned as a recruiter, and what I feel that you're going to need to know to really just speak the employer's language. And then even after you land the job, there's work that needs to be done that often isn't talked about. So hopefully this will be a unique twist, and, you know, hopefully someone will learn at least one thing. We will have time for Q&A. However, this actually is going to be very interactive. I will be asking for thoughts as we go along the way. So if you're comfortable, you can put yourself off mute or just type in some thoughts in the chat. Definitely, Roxanne, thank you for assisting me with that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, anytime we talk about a resume, I always like to get to the root, you know, what is the purpose of a resume? And I know that a lot of people, you know, might have thoughts about what it is, but essentially I want to talk about like not only what a resume is, but, you know, when you should use it and how you should understand. So let's go ahead and chat about it. I have a quick question, and I don't have the poll feature. So if you don't mind just maybe throwing this in the chat, what does the term resume mean? If you can take a guess and type it in the chat, you're also welcome to unmute yourself. What does the term resume mean? Anyone want to take a quick guess? And no cheating. Summary of experience. Yes, that is exactly right. The resume is your summary. So the term resume does come from French and it means summary. That is exactly what your resume is. Your summary of your qualifications, your skills, your achievements. It really shows a future employer what you've done in the past. It details, there's some background noise. Okay. It can detail to your employer about your skills, your training, your education, and most importantly, just the accomplishments you've made. A resume should also inform your future employer of your career objective, like what job are you seeking? What are you interested in? This is a tool that you will use to communicate in a very concise manner the benefits of what you bring to the table. And so all in all, a resume is your advertisement. It advertises you. It's your marketing tool. It basically will showcase who you are, what you want to be known for, and the benefits of having you a part of a team. And so why do you need a resume, right? And so thinking about that, in today's job market, the resume has become the #1 requirement. And people even ask me like, well, where does LinkedIn fall into play? Do you really need a resume? Even with LinkedIn, I personally believe that the resume is here to stay, unless, LinkedIn does some amazing feature. But essentially, think about it, before any employer will take the time to interview you, they're going to want to meet you, but on paper, how you impress an employer with your resume can and will make the difference. And so essentially, without a resume, you can't even begin to compete. And much less if you have, a bad resume. Good luck really trying to get somebody to talk to you, right? And so this is why it's so imperative that, you really not only understand the formatting and like great keywords, but just how to really build a resume to speak the language that employers want to know. Essentially, they want to know what can you do for them and what you bring to the table. So I have another quick question, if you can type in the chat. What is the purpose? Like if you could really narrow down the ultimate purpose of having a resume, what would that be? Excellent, yeah, so to get the interview. Most people do think that a good resume will get them the job. Luckily, you all are not most people, but this is a mistake. In today's rare market, to find an employer who hires anyone solely on what they've read on their resume, that essentially is not the case. Employers want to check you out in person before they hire you. They want you to substantiate your resume. They want to see if you have the personality. Hi, can someone just go off mute? I hear some background. Okay. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. So this, of course, it requires you to have an interview. second. So, sorry, thank you. There's just some background noise that's coming through my speaker, but hopefully if someone could maybe just mute themselves. So the number one purpose of a resume is to get that interview. It ultimately will get the job that you're looking for. And again, today's market where companies utilize resume tracking programs, there's a computer system that may or may not select you based on keywords. So you do have to be careful, with certain keywords and benefits. You not only have to impress the employer, but in some cases, you might have to impress the computer. So, if you've ever thought like, man, if only I had the chance to talk to an employer, he'd really know that I was a great fit for the job, right? With that impressive resume, you just might do that. Now, there are some other reasons for a resume. Obviously, a resume can prepare you for the interview. So, most employers will use your resume as a guideline, depending on the types of questions they want to ask, they might use that as a tool. And also it can get you organized. So, even if you're not necessarily actively looking for a job, I always recommend that you keep your resume up to date, because you can do a full assessment of your skills, what you want to prioritize in your career. It can really help you evaluate the tons of employment options out there. And so when it is time, it can also help you build an effective campaign for yourself. A resume can also be a sense of security, right? Like, it is a good idea to keep it updated, because again, you never know when you want to seek a better job. In the event you unexpectedly lose a job, right? You don't want to have to spend a week or 2 weeks trying to get your resume updated. So, it can add that. And then lastly, which is actually my personal favorite, if you haven't done so, I encourage you to do this. A resume is a great tool for networking. I actually gave an example about, a recruiter or a manager who might not necessarily want to chat with you without a resume. But, what about someone you meet casually who isn't a hiring manager, but maybe they just have great connections in their company, right? I don't know if any of you have been bold enough to just say, hey, check out my resume. If you know anybody in your company that's looking, feel free to shout it out. So those are a couple of things that you can keep in mind when you're just thinking about the purpose and just how a resume can be such a great tool. So moving on, just laying out the basics, I wanted to hone in and just talk about the reasons behind, but essentially there's work that does need to take place before you even start drafting that resume. And so I really just wanted to take some high level points and discuss some of them. Some of them I'll have more deeper discussion, and some will be a little bit quick, but we're going to talk about creating that checklist. So, and most of you probably already know this, before anyone should submit a resume, submit an application, or even think about, talking to an employer, absolutely researching the job to understand the role. I can tell you this, I don't know how many times I get LinkedIn requests or people who, want to talk more about visa, but then they can't communicate to me, what positions they're looking for, or, why the position that they're looking for is important. And so I always tell people, before you really take that first step of applying, do the foundational work. The foundation of a customized resume is your experience mixed with accomplishments, tailored with an employer's specific job opening. So I will say that again, the foundation of a customized resume is your experience mixed with accomplishments, but you need to tailor that to what the employer is looking for. So after you search for job openings that may match your interest, it's important that you make your resume as relevant to the position as possible. A job description is an essential part of the job application process. And so with the right information, it should help you determine whether the role is in line with your skill set or whether it's a job that you actually want, right? So from the organization's perspective, the job description is vital in ensuring that the applications coming in closely match their needs. And so the last point that I will say here, it's always recommended to match keywords in the ad to what's in your resume. And I'm not diving completely into like keyword matching, but you can always do a little bit of research and use a thesaurus and really just see how the keywords that are in a job ad should be reflected in your resume. Step 2, which this is actually my favorite, and this goes back to the work that you should do even after you get a job. List your applicable soft, hard, and technical skills. So you want to create a list of all these skills, your qualifications you have, and even just group them into different categories. So let's talk a little bit about soft skills. So things like communication, customer service, teamwork, those are things that are vital in today's society. So, if you have an area that especially if you've done previous training on it, those can be listed as your soft. Of course, your language skills, strategic planning, business development, those are going to be those hard skills. And usually when you look at any resume, majority, or I would say about 80% of a resume will show those hard skills that are needed. And then lastly, technical, which, probably self-explanatory, but technical skills are going to be anything industry related, coding, video production. If you're in marketing, you can design, what type of platforms that you're using. So all in all, it's recommended to just make sure that you have a strong mix of all three. Like, even if you feel like you're not somebody who's really technical, and maybe you have very limited experience, figure out, where in your previous experience have you had some technical exposure? And even if you're not an expert, put it on your resume. A well-balanced resume is extremely important as it relates to your skills. So the next part of our checklist, again, so we are doing the work, we're thinking about and brainstorming what we need to do before we even, draft the resume. We really want to focus on those important job duties from each of your previous positions that are most relevant to the job that you are going for. And I say most relevant because it's vital to eliminate any positions that, maybe doesn't necessarily give value, right? And of course, all work is valuable. But say, for instance, if you are somebody who might have a position in, I'm thinking if you worked in finance, right? Like you did a lot of work in finance, but then you have even more experience in marketing, right? And you're pursuing a marketing position. Don't be afraid to just eliminate that finance role unless there is, a business case as to why you would need it there. Employers may request some information about your current job just to get an idea about, how your duties and your experience relate to those responsibilities of the role. And so, they may feel more confident about hiring you if they know that you've completed similar tasks and projects, which, to the point of eliminating anything that's not relevant, you want to increase your chances by them saying, yes, this person has done the work that we're currently doing, and not waste any time listing a role that really doesn't make sense. And so when asking about your job responsibilities, employers may also want to know, what results you may have provided to your company when completing those work duties. This also can help gain an idea about what benefits you bring to the table if you've completed similar responsibilities. And then lastly, take your list of previous role and add as many facts and figures, numbers as you can. How many people were impacted by your work, whether it's your current role or your previous role? What type of impact did you make to the organization? You can say things like, what percentage did you exceed your goals? How much money did you save the organization on a specific project? Instead of saying, you effectively managed a budget, list out, how much money was it specifically that you managed? How large was the budget? Did you have any people on your team that you had to also oversee budgets, right? So really here, when you talk about just matching and speaking the language of the employer, it's important that you dive deeper into just conversations. And there is a part where I will be giving you some examples about, what that really looks like. And so this slide is going to have step 4 and 5, but step 4, showing impact through that data, which I previously mentioned. As you write out your achievements, showing your work's impact is critical because, employers want to see how your contributions impacted your previous role. So if there is a way you can figure out, maybe ask your current employer, or, if you have access to your spreadsheets, find the numbers, right? Like find the numbers of your current client list, find the numbers of how many people that you are having to manage internally. So I know for my job is more of like a program management role. And so I literally have to manage 10, 12 people in various different projects. And even with that, the number of the students that I have to connect with, market to, advertise to, and then I also have to track the return on investment, right? Like how many students are applying for our positions? How many students are getting hired? It's those types of details that you really want to showcase, because essentially, you want an employer to say, man, Brittany did a lot with, what she had. And then the last point here, as far as just creating our checklist. Oops, I forgot to do that. The last point here is to study resume examples for your job title. And I think this one is probably the easiest, right? You can literally go online and just find similar job titles that will give you a sense of what information employers seek on the top candidates. So, if you know that you want to, especially for you all who might be interested in changing careers. So I mentioned to y'all at the beginning, I actually did a career change. I spent several years in student affairs, but then I transitioned to corporate. And even though I'm in a very similar role, like it's vastly different. So I actually spent months really honing in on what a corporation would want out of somebody who might be interested in pursuing university relations versus what a university would want, for a student affairs staff. So definitely.
Brittany, we have 2 questions. Would you like to take them now?
I see. Yeah, let's go ahead.
Sure. So the first question is, I highlighted important job duties on my resume, but my resume looks packed. Is there a way to make it look more streamlined? Do you have some suggestions?
Yes. So Jessica, you said it makes your resume look packed. If you're seeing like reoccurring themes in a job description, then I would say narrow it down by like prioritizing repeated phrases or repeated keywords. If you feel like you have a vast amount of duties and skills, you might really just have to take make a list and just prioritize based off of what you're seeing on the job description. Does that make sense? Perfect. I also see Kathy. How many pages can a resume be? Usually, I'll say this. I never want to put limits on a resume per se, but I would say if you can keep it to no more than 2 pages, 1 page is most ideal, but obviously I realize for us professionals who've been in the game for a while, 1 page might not always be feasible. But if you can try to be as concise as possible and just get it to 2 pages. Now, there is a caveat to this. You don't want a lot of white space, right? So if you are somebody who's like a page and a half, you might have to make a decision to really cut it down to just 1 page because it really doesn't look good. And employers, they don't necessarily want to read just like 1 or 2 lines, at the top of the page. So just be mindful with that. What else, Roxanne?
Kylie Bam has a question. She's been told in the past to show instead of tell her soft part or technical skills. She is an entry level with very little experience. How can she make her resume well balanced and back up her competencies and her experiences? Entry level.
Yes, you were definitely told right. You want to show instead of tell. I'm actually going to get into that in a bit, but I'll still answer your question. It's going to be a matter of how you word it. It's all in a matter of wording. So there is a way that you can, if your soft skill is, I have strong communication skills, instead of saying, strong communication, you might need to really notate, what did that look like in your role? Did you have to do presentations? If so, how many presentations a week or a month? Do you have access to executive leadership? Do you have to run programs? Or have you led, like, say, I know you're entry level, but maybe you ran a volunteer group, or if you, in your internship, you were a project lead. You can show examples of how you communicated effectively, you were able to persuade. So we'll get into that, but I'm hoping that kind of gives you a little bit of idea about how you can really showcase those soft skills in a more data-driven way. Wonderful. Okay. And please let me know more questions. I actually have something that I want y'all to think about. Take a minute. I'll just give y'all about 40 seconds. You don't necessarily have to shout it out. You're free to share if you'd like. So as I thought, talking to you about, employers want to see your impact. They want to know how you have helped your organization, how you helped your team. Take a moment and just jot down, at this point, what's been your most impactful role or responsibility? And again, you're free to share in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. What has been your most impactful role or responsibility? My hope is that this question will give you more thought about, if you made great impact in one type of position, this should lead you into the direction of your next opportunity. Okay, so we're going to make a transition. I will pause. Is there any other questions or thoughts? I would love to know if And if you have any thoughts or anything that you would just want to share really quick, maybe, thinking about your most impactful role. Or
Jessica and Kelly have contributed in the chat. They've Card Luck Manager of North Bay Petroleum from Jessica, and Leadership Trainer of Culture Coaching. So she's impactful in those areas.
I'd be interested in knowing, Jessica, if you don't mind sharing, like, what was it about that management position with North Bay that you feel was most impactful? Like, if I was an employer, what would you tell me?
Well, I was the manager of a very specific kind of niche, and not a lot of people know what Card Luck is, but it's essentially, we're a petroleum company and we use the network fueling cards. So we had our own clients and I managed all of that. So for instance, one company, I went in and they were having because a lot of times people don't think about it, but a lot of companies, their biggest expense is fuel. So one company in particular, I was able to go in and do a presentation and do a whole kind of analysis on their fuel usage, where their employees were going in California, where they were fueling, and compiled all that data and was able to go in. The company was getting ready to leave us, and I was able to show them where I could save them money and how much I could. And that was like it was like almost $300,000 I would be saving them a year, which was a huge savings. So
that's fantastic. Well,
yeah.
Congrats to you.
Thanks. It was fun.
Yeah. Kelly, would you be open to sharing why was the leadership role the most impactful?
So it was actually for actually I worked for Dutch Bros back in the day for like 10 years. And I was the regional trainer and was in charge of also helping, just developing the culture and the training skills of, just starting at the bottom and then, okay, let's work into how do I become a shift lead? How do I become a store trainer? And then eventually that would lead into other opportunities for the individuals to get into management or whatnot. Or really tons of opportunities. There's so many opportunities, just, not just working in the actual stores, but, being able to develop into working for headquarters or even getting into a position where they can eventually open their own stores. So I was heavily involved, to start with the base training. And then from there, we would start, noticing who is interested. And that would require weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings with each individual that was interested in learning and growing their skills and how to move up the chain, I guess. But we didn't always just focus on, what can I do while I'm here? It was a lot of personal development, a lot of what can I be doing outside of work to make sure that, it's just kind of a well-rounded balance overall. So I feel like I'm definitely making this impact.
That's excellent. Yeah, you can never go wrong with serving people. So kudos to you for that. So let's transition. We've talked about the skills, the soft skills. I've walked you through, how you can list out everything that you've done. But one of the key parts of today is I want to walk you through this term or phrase, skills versus employer benefit. So it's very important to notate the difference between the two, and we'll talk about it. So there is a quote by Peter Newfield. He is a president of a company called Career Resumes. And so he basically says that today's resumes must be results driven, which we talked about that, rather than skills driven resumes of the past, which this next slide, I wanted to give you some ways or some examples that you could really translate what some of your skills are, whether it be hard skills, soft skills, technical skills. And to a previous person's question, how do you really translate that into, what an employer might be looking for, right? We know that employers are more interested in those benefits. So the first example that I have here, instead of, just listing in a bullet point, proficient in Excel, how about list your ability to create pivot tables or reporting tools, right? If you really give an employer the examples of what you've done by utilizing Excel, that will go further than simply just listing the skill of being proficient. Another example is, say for instance, you're going for a management role and you want to showcase that you have strong communication skills. We all want to, showcase that. How about instead of, just listing that, you can let the employer know that you are highly efficient in leadership qualities with the ability to train and develop, 8 team members, or you were successful at, managing monthly onboarding trainings or monthly staff development trainings, or you were successful at presenting on the company's employer brand or their business case. Those types of things can give you great examples. And I don't necessarily have a ton of data or, numbers here, but I think you can kind of get the point. If you are somebody that does weekly or monthly presentations, add that number in here. If you are leading a team of 8 and you are working on their professional development and you're having to lead classes or workshops, right? List how many classes or workshops you do and list like the impact that you've made with your speaking skills. That will go a long way. Another example is like the technical aspect, right? So maybe you've mastered a software. And here I have an example of HubSpot. HubSpot is more like a marketing tool. So instead of just having a list of, oh, I'm an expert in HubSpot, right? Let the employer know that you actually have the ability to create high-end design tools at an affordable cost. Or maybe you had to manage, 8 clients a month and you successfully created content for them that brought their business to scale, right? If you were to tell me that, I would already assume this person is a master at, a marketing software. And then lastly, we always see, strong analytical skills or, very analytical, right? I always tell people, replace that with a statement, maybe something as, ability to work data and draw meaningful conclusions. Because the fact of the matter is, being analytical, you have to be able to tell the story, right? And so tell your employer how you've told the story. Maybe you've utilized your spreadsheets and being able to walk them through how you came to the decision that you've made in a certain situation. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts, or maybe there's an example you would want to think through or practice? I'm happy to take a pause here and just get your reaction on simply listing skills versus translating them to speak the employer's language.
There's a question in the box from one of our, from Teresa.
Yes.
She'd like to know if there would be an issue if the computer programs try to match keywords. For instance, if the computer is looking for proficient in Excel, don't you need to put it in that way? I'm not sure how those programs are, maybe like algorithm or is what she's trying to.
Sure. I will say this, the key word there is Excel. So if you, whether you're proficient, an expert, or a master, the key word there will be Excel. So always think about, if you are seeing a specific skill listed on a job ad, that skill or that software or whatever that particular note that the company has made, that's the keyword that you want to focus on. You don't have to necessarily worry about the adverbs or the additional words. Does that make sense? because you really could get in the weeds, right? I mean, there's so many, like I use a thesaurus, and just even just based off of what I know from a recruiter standpoint, just focus on the technical word or that specific skill, you're good to go.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is for this specific example, instead of putting proficient in Excel as your like technical skill, if you instead put ability to create pivot tables, wouldn't that like, wouldn't you be filtered out or something? I'm not so sure how those work.
Sure. So you could, I mean, that's a great question. You could essentially have both, like say for instance, because usually on most resumes, you're going to have the, skills at the top, which I always still recommend. You want to have your list of skills, right? So like if you are skilled in Excel, you do need to put that in there. If proficient in a certain technology, you do want to have it bulleted at the top of your resume. But the example that I'm trying to make is that once you get down to the experience piece, and once you really hone in on the Excel, your resume should reflect what you've done with the skills that were listed. Does that make it a little bit more clear? Perfect. And so essentially, my goal for you is to think of yourself, you're the product, right? Like when you go shopping and you are, like say for instance, it's Black Friday and everything is on sale, right? You only have $50 to budget, like win your budget, and you have one item that's $50, and then you have another item that might be $49.99, right? At some point, you're going to have to do a full assessment. What does this item bring to the table? Which one is going to meet my needs? Even if your needs is just retail therapy, right? Like which one is going to give me the most fun, or which one is going to, help me in the moment? Or maybe you need something with a 10-year warranty versus a 5-year warranty, right? Like I just bought a juicer, and the reason why I selected it was because it came with a lifetime warranty. And it was actually more expensive than the alternative. So you are the product. When you think about yourself, you're having conversations with an employer, you're writing out your resume. What indicates your potential? What have you done in the past that's going to tell your employer the benefits that you've demonstrated? What were some of your accomplishments? What have you achieved? Once an employer realizes that an applicant is well-versed in what they're looking for, what their business model is, how they can add value to the company, the job is going to explain, or excuse me, your job will be easy. It'll be easy to explain to the employer why they should hire you. So think about that as you go along in the journey. You are the product, the employer is the consumer, and you essentially have to convince them why they should pick you. So I'd love to do just a quick thought, and maybe you can just type in the chat, or you can just make a note of yourself, right? Like if you were to sell yourself as a product, what would be some things that you would share? Like what will you say is some of your strengths? And you can give, you can make an example if you know that you're pursuing a specific type of job. How would you sell yourself as a product to the consumer? Anyone want to take a stab? Let me ask, is there anyone that's currently like going through the interview process now, or maybe that you're applying to positions? Yes. Okay. So guess I'll do this. If you don't want to necessarily share, but I would love to know for someone, a brave soul, if you are actively applying to a position now, I would love to know what the position is and what is your plan to sell yourself as a product. Who would want to be brave to like, let's just talk about it.
From a coaching standpoint, this is Roxanne Farkas with UC San Diego Extension. What I see, because I look at a lot of resumes as well, is I see people creating portfolios, and that's something I wanted to ask. Is that something like a link on my resume to my accomplishments?
Yes, that is a great, especially if you're somebody who is in a more technical or creative career, if you work with a lot of different clients or you're creating materials, absolutely. Having that link to your portfolio is great. It's almost like a brochure, right?
Right. Thank you. We have a hand raised.
Hi, I'm Jillian. I just wanted to highlight too, I think for a lot of us being college students, this is kind of like our first experience being in the job field that we're trying to actually pursue as a career. So I feel like something that's super good to highlight is our eagerness to learn and how dedicated we are to kind of bettering ourselves in that job field, just because we don't have as much experience as someone who's already established in that career field.
That is an excellent point. I will say with Visa, we're looking for curiosity. We're looking for someone who is, is a learner, someone who has the aptitude, ambition. So you've made a great point. Any other thoughts on how you might sell yourself as a product?
I have another. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. We have another person who's raised their hand.
Yeah, this is she speaking. Hi. I think I'm currently looking for data analytics, data science positions. So if I am in an interview, I would like definitely to talk about the project that I previously worked on that is really relevant to the job description that I saw for this position. Talk a lot about the details. And also importantly is how I communicate and work with the team on this different project that I works on, and really show my attitude towards work, my responsibility and my accountability, in a professional working environment. Yep.
Yes, excellent. And one thing I will say is if you have a lot of examples, don't be afraid to hone in on, maybe your top 3 and just really get very specific. But that's a great point. Thank you for sharing. I see one other hand.
Sammer?
Hello.
Hi, Sammer.
Hi. Yeah, the role that I'm pursuing is the undergraduate internship for crypto product at Visa. And looking at the description, I would probably, like if I were in an interview, I would highlight my technical knowledge in the cryptocurrency space, as well as my previous internship doing research for like the banking sector. So I think I would basically highlight how the combination of those 2 things gives me the research ability and the domain knowledge to do well in the role.
Absolutely. And the good news is for that role, I know the manager, he doesn't require like formal crypto experience. So you're welcome to connect with me and we can chat more about that. I will send my contact. So after this, it might not be until tomorrow morning, but I will be sending Roxanne information about my LinkedIn, how to contact me, and we can dive in. I have more slides and I think we're only 5 minutes, correct, Roxanne?
Yes, we have additional time. So 5 more minutes.
So let's do this. I want to, there are some things that I was going to share as far as, after offer and just how to stay relevant. And just, well, here, I think this is a good example. So one thing that I always tell people, as you are continuing your journey, even if you are currently in school, right? These are different examples of how you can continue to develop your soft skills in a non-traditional way, or excuse me, not soft skills, your skills in a non-traditional way. So if you are somebody who says, you know what, I really need to work on my relationship building, my communication, self-improvement, you know, join some type of team, find a mentor, start going to conferences and signing up to speak, right? Or there's a thing called Toastmasters. There's tons of ways that you can boost your communication skills, your team building skills, or maybe you're someone who thinks that you just need a little bit more technical skills. Try to join some type of competition, you know, in your field, or dabble in some Google trainings. And then the last thing with the hard skills, if you are needing some digital learnings, you know, consider training and certifications. So I'm glad that we're going to share this with you, but really my final thought is your resume has the power to open doors. So think about that. I would tell people, don't be haphazard. And again, I know I didn't go through like some of the technicalities in the formatting. I really think if you do some research on your own, you can find it, but think of your resume as your door opener. You're the product. How are you going to sell it? When you do get a hiring manager in front of you, how are you going to sell yourself?